We chose to do a video documentary because it seemed interesting. We also researched that most of the winners of the National History Days won because of doing and making a video documentary. So we got inspired by that, inspired by winning the history fair by doing this documentary.
We had problems finding websites other than Wikipedia. So we reviewed the sources of the webpage called All About Steve Jobs, and those sources were the ones that really helped us in our project of our research.
We started our research by looking at YouTube videos about Steve Jobs, like his speeches and his other stuff, like when he explained his life. Also, we looked about some useful web pages like All About Steve Jobs, which is a really useful page we used. We had other web pages like Bio and some books that we used to make our research. And they were useful because they told us about his life and how he lived.
Tyler, what do you think about Steve Jobs?
I admire him for being an innovative person. I think that it's cool that he had a dream and he chased his dream. And I think that he's one of those people that cancer took away his life too soon.
Dr. Fox, what do you think about the leadership of Steve Jobs?
I understand from what I heard that he was a very innovative fellow and came up with a lot of ideas, but also surrounded himself with people who also had good ideas and listened to them, which is pretty good for an executive.
Do you think he did good in leading?
Evidently, he did a very good job because the company grew with him, didn't grow when he was gone for a while, and grew when he came back.
Okay. Thanks for all this information, Dr. Fox.
Smart.
Creative.
Successful.
Creative.
Awesome.
I was lucky. I found what I loved to do early in life. Woz and I started Apple in my parents' garage when I was 20. We worked hard, and in 10 years, Apple had grown from just the two of us in a garage into a $2 billion company with over 4,000 employees. We just released our finest creation, the Macintosh, a year earlier, and I just turned 30. And then I got fired. How can you get fired from a company you started? Well, as Apple grew, we hired someone who I thought was very talented to run the company with me. And for the first year or so, things went well. But then our visions of the future began to diverge, and eventually we had a falling out. When we did, our board of directors sided with him. And so at 30, I was out, and very publicly out. What had been the focus of my entire adult life was gone, and it was devastating. I really didn't know what to do for a few months. I felt that I had let the previous generation of entrepreneurs down, that I had dropped the baton as it was being passed to me. I met with David Packard and Bob Noyce and tried to apologize for screwing up so badly. I was a very public failure, and I even thought about running away from the valley. But something slowly began to dawn on me. I still loved what I did. The turn of events at Apple had not changed that one bit. I'd been rejected, but I was still in love. And so I decided to start over. I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, less sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods in my life. During the next 5 years, I started a company named Next, another company named Pixar, and fell in love with an amazing woman who would become my wife.
What is Steve Jobs' legacy? Steve Jobs is the most admired businessman in the world today, even though he has passed on. I think if you asked any business student who is your role model in business, 90% would say Steve Jobs. It's incredible the impact that he has had on business today. He created products that were so beautifully designed and so unique that people just wanted them. And now today, if you look at Apple, it's the largest company in the US, in the entire world actually, and it's extremely profitable because people love Apple products and they're willing to pay more for them. So anyone that has an Android phone, you know, this is kind of a commodity, and they're all using the same operating system, it's all similar, and the prices are usually a lot lower. But with an iPhone, people are willing to pay big bucks, and really Steve Jobs, more than anyone on earth, has created products that are so beautiful and so functional that people just love them and are willing to pay more for them.
Neb, what do you think about Steve Jobs' leadership?
I think he was a great leader. I think he was a great motivator. I think he was able to think outside the box and get the people who worked for him to be really innovative in the products and technology that he brought to the table, not only with Apple but with Pixar, which was later absorbed by Disney, and the MP3 player, the iPod, along with the iPhone and iTunes and the App Store and things like that, are what turned Apple around from bankruptcy to one of the more profitable companies in the world.
Jobs was a great entrepreneur, a visionary, and determined, and leader. Not only in leadership, but in humanity. He inspired other people to follow his steps.
Steve Jobs' legacy were his companies, which were Apple, Next, and Pixar, which were successful and became great companies and were the greatest and legacy Steve Jobs had.
Steve Jobs' life was full of challenges, but he faced them and became a good leader. He never graduated from college, and he got fired from his own company, Apple. But he went through them and created 2 other companies, Pixar and Next. Disney bought Pixar and Apple bought Next, making him return to Apple again.
Thank you.